So today is Rosh Chodesh. It's the first day of the month of Sivan. It's a very, very special day. Um, the Jews came to, was it Bamidbar Sinai today? They came, I think, no? Or was it, they came on the third day? When did they come? Or maybe by Har Sinai, they were getting ready. Oh, you didn't hear what I said. I was asking if the Jews came to the Bamidbar, they came to the desert Sinai. I think it says in Rosh Chodesh Sivan, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 5 days,
Is it? Yes, yeah. So they came, I think they came to the desert Sinai, right by the mountain. And you have to actually imagine what happened, which is that the Yidden were freed and the Egyptians were destroyed. And now, I mean, it wasn't like just like literally like how, what 2 months before they were in Egypt, and they just witnessed. It says what a maidservant saw, even Yecheskel ben Buzi didn't see. They saw tremendous revelations of Hashem. They went from being, under Egypt to having the wealth of Egypt, and they really were in a very special place. It says that they came to the location. They were there. Vayichan Shom Yisrael Neged Ahar. The Jewish people were there by the mountain. Ki ish echad b'leiv echad, like one man with one heart. B'chlal, there's a very beautiful interpretation. I forgot who says it. Maybe the Sfas Emes says that we find that when the Egyptians chased the Jews, it says b'leiv echad ki ish echad, with one heart, like one man. And yet when the Jews dwelled together at Mount Sinai, and Hashem says, oh, now they have Avos Yisrael, they have peace and love, and they don't like division, so now we can give them the Torah. He says they are literally like Ishachad, like one man with one heart. So why is there this switch? It seems to be the same. One man, one heart. But when the Jews are at Mount Sinai, it says like one man with one heart. When the Egyptians are pursuing the Jews, it says one heart, one man. So the answer is that you can only have unity if your fundamental idea is we are one. When people gather together, and that's what a lot of people don't realize with this, you have cults, whether it was the communist cult, whether it was Nazi cult, and today it's called the woke cult, they're not really unified. They may share a common goal. It's like a whole bunch of people that are come to a stadium. We want our team to win, and they're all rah rah rah. Our team is going to win. So they have one heart, but they're not one people. Because if you said, okay, well, you lend that guy $100, none of them are going to do it. In fact, they have studies in America. 50% of Americans don't have a single person to borrow $100 from. Imagine the anxiety of that. So the point is that we were in a situation that real unity, that's why it says real unity can only come from Kedusha, holiness. Because what is holiness? Holiness is that we are one. Yeah, we happen to be in different bodies or different missions, but fundamentally we're one. Then you can get even higher, you can have Avos Yisrael, but the beginning stage is we're one people, we're one. And when you get to that, then you have real unity. It's not like a goal that we have in common. Our team should win. But fundamentally, we're different. There's a cute story that there was a guy who went to Ukraine. This guy by the name of Drizin. He's a Yid from Crown Heights, and he went to visit, I don't know, some little shtetl where his grandfather's tombstone is. So he goes to, I think, Moscow, and it's a 17-hour drive. He's got some Ukrainian driver hacking him China for 17 hours. And finally he's there. And afterwards he decides he wants to see if there are any Yidden. So he goes around, he can't find. So the driver, the Ukrainian, says, I'm going to find. He starts to really, and they say, yeah, there's one babushka, one grandmother and her granddaughter. So he comes, he knocks on the door, she welcomes him in, and she offers him some tea, and they schmooze for 50 minutes and they leave. The guy's silent for 2 hours, like something happened to him. So then he wakes up, the 17-hour driver talker, and he says, listen, one day I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to America. I'm going to bring all my buddies from Ukraine to the bar. We're going to have a drink. I'm going to buy a drink for all of them. He's like, nice. He says, but afterwards, we're going to go home. And I'm me and they're there. And there's not a real connection between the two of us. He says, but you and that babushka, you were family. So that's a vart. The Rebbe says, when Yidden come together, something good has to come. The Rebbe Shab says something good has to come for a third. In fact, the Rebbe says that the way the Rebbe made it is that by nature we feel something in common. Now, obviously, there's the Yetzer Hara that wants to create division and machlokes, but bottom line is that, or I said it to Rabbi Yosef earlier, I read this, we all know the famous teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. It says a Jew, a soul will come to this world for 70, 80 years for the purpose of doing a favor, helping another begashper, certainly in Beruchis. But before that, he says something else. He says that you have to have Mesiras Nefesh for Avas Yisrael. It's a tremendous thing because it's funny because I was thinking about it, I just read it as I came into Ascent, I had that thing in mind, and I just approached whatever person there, just approached the person differently because if your mindset is I have to have Mesiras Nefesh for Avas Yisrael, so you see a Yid, and that's the real way to live life. Because if you're living life, and this kind of ties into what I was going to say in terms of our thought for the day. First, let's say the Tanya. Maybe we'll say the thought for the day that we have a separate device for recording that. So, the Tanya of today basically is really, you can't really understand the Tanya of today without the context you're all doing. The Tanya, you do the Chitas of the day?
Every day what?
The daily Tanya. Are you familiar with the daily Tanya?
I have the Tanya book at home, but I didn't know there was a
daily Tanya. You got to go back to your Chabad rabbis and have a chat with them.
About the daily Tanya?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, Del, he's got to improve his educational.
Okay, I don't know if he's teaching anymore, but
yeah,
okay.
but no, let me explain to you what I'm talking about, okay?
All right.
So there's something called Chitas. Chitas is a study done, the previous Rebbe started Chitas. It's called Chumash, Tehillim, and Tanya.
Okay.
Now, we do the daily Chumash of the day, and that is, let's say this week's Parshas Nosoi, right? So you do the Chumash with the Rashi. There's 7 aliyos, so for 7 days, 1 aliyah. Yeah? You with me?
I'm with you, but I do Tehillim.
Okay, good. So
the Chumash, I have opened it up on Shabbos.
Okay, so what you should do is do the Chumash, the Tehillim, and then there's also the Tanya. The Tanya was divided to the year. The Frierdiker Rebbe started it, and the Rebbe actually divided it. And so it's very, very, it's very valuable to do the Chitas every day. It helps a lot.
So yeah, I can turn to any page in the Tanya, or
no, there's a specific order. You go through the whole Tanya. There are various different magazines. There's a magazine called Chayenu. You could buy. It's not expensive, like $100 and something. You'll get the day. They'll send it to you. You'll get the Chumash, the Tehillim, and the Tanya. Have you ever heard of the Daily Rambam? Okay, I'm gonna have to have a serious chat with you, Del. Rabbi leader, right? It's a problem because people can go to Chabad houses for many years, and Chabad is very welcoming. But once you're already religious, people have to learn a little bit more, But yeah. So there's also something called the Daily Rambam. Okay, now there are various different study things, right? There's Chabad.org has a daily study.
That I have.
Yeah, you have the daily study app.
I just have Chabad.org.
Okay. So Chabad.org put out a daily study app, or if you go to Chabad.org, go to daily study. It's beautiful. You get the Chumash, the Tehillim, the Tanya, and the Rambam. You have 3 options. You could either do the easiest, it's called Sefer HaMitzvot, which is doing a couple of mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs, a couple of mitzvahs a day. You could do the best, which is 3 chapters a day, and there are many different courses, but that will take about 45 minutes a day. Or you could do what I do, which is kind of average Jew, you could do one chapter a day. Okay, but if you do one chapter a day, it's very important to do the Rambam because you go through. Is the only book that goes through every single mitzvah. So after 3 years, you'll be knowledgeable in every single mitzvah, even the sacrifice and the Torah. And one of the things our soul has to do in this world is go through all the mitzvah. Okay? So this is very important. Hopefully from now on.
To know about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I hopefully I'm doing mitzvot.
Sure.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Which ones?
Sure.
This way I would know. Oh, I just did that one. I did
Yeah.
that one,
100%. 100%.
Take an
Yeah.
accounting of
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, and I can get that at Chabad.org.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Very good. Good luck on that. Now, continuing. So today's Tanya is actually it's like part of 3-chapter series, which is on the idea of how the Shekhinah manifests. So when we say the Shekhinah, you know what that means? Yeah. How the Shekhinah, the presence of God, manifests in this world. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense out of context. It's just one little point today, but I'll just focus on the one little point. That way we can have the next point tomorrow and the next point after that. So the little point of today is that there's a difference between, so just to give you a general overview, we spoke about it before, but the way it works is that you're familiar, there are 4 spiritual worlds, right?
You're talking about the
Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, like 4 spiritual universes above us. Similar to the Sphirot, but not exactly. So, okay, so the Sphirot exist in a world, okay? So the Sphirot basically have intellectual and emotional, okay? Now, your intellectual Sphirot are 3, which is Chachma, Bina, Das, like innovation, integration, understanding, whatever you want to call it. And then you have the emotions, which are mainly love and fear, and all other emotions come from. So the story is that you have our universe called the world of Asiya. Above our universe is the spiritual world of Asiya, which is like a prototype of this universe. Like if you have a screen, there's like the computer, and the computer has the information that comes onto the screen. Above that world is the world of Yetzira, which is also called the world of angels. They kind of hang out there. Above that world is called the world of Bria. That's more the world of souls. It's a more intellectual appreciation of God, the world of the throne, the higher Gan Eden. Above that world is the world of Atzilus, which comes from the word Etzlei V'Sama, very close to God. The fundamental idea of these universes is that really Hashem is, you don't mind us taking a little bit now? Really Hashem is everywhere, 100% everywhere. Now, the thing is, how come I don't see him? He's right here, right? Exactly as he is, everywhere. In the higher worlds, there's more of a revelation. So as you go through the worlds, just imagine like you have the sunlight, it's very bright. Then you put a room inside this room. And so the room inside this room, this has curtains, so it makes it dark. So maybe you don't even see the sun, but there's enough light coming in that you know that there's a sun and sunlight. But the next one, it's like tiny bit of light that came through. It's already what's real, that world. In fact, you need a light, and the light brightens up your world. It's like this other world, and maybe then the next, there's a room inside that room, and like you hardly know about the other room, that room. So then you have this world. It's like you don't even see the original light. It's just all concealed. And that way, our world is called olam, from the word helem, concealment. One of the things it says in the second book of Tanya is that God wanted to make our world completely dark. You wouldn't see God anywhere. Why? Because the whole point of this world is that you could discover God. And the darker it is, the greater the discovery. The more light it is, oh, you see it, but it wasn't a discovery. But Hashem realized that it would be too dark. We wouldn't manage. So he gave us the tzaddikim that help us see that there's a God. And he gave us the miracles of the Torah that also help us realize, and especially now, right before Mashiach, there are a lot of miracles going on in our own lives around the world. It says that we're in a time where when you ask a Jew about the miracles, he said, what do you mean? Yesterday there was a miracle that happened to me, especially if you're in Tzfat and everything's Hashgacha Pratis here. I used to think that the one decision you can make in Tzfat is what time to get out of bed. And I realized even that's Hashgacha Pratis in Tzfat. Tzfat, you've lost control. If you think you have control of your life, you should go to Tel Aviv. But if you... Yeah. Tzfat is like, it's like an AA program here. Let go, let God. There's no self left. Anyway, so but coming back to our thing, it's a very big subject. There are literally 30,000 books of Kabbalah just on explaining this subject, right? And another 1,000 books of Chassidus or something like that. It's a massive subject because it is it is the mechanism that God uses to go from the one God who is without any limit to us in this universe. And even though the universe seems so big, it's a limited universe. And to get from something that's infinite without limitations to something that's finite is a miracle. It's an infinite gap. And that's what the Arizal, who is buried here, taught in Tzfat, says. So it's called Simsim Arishan. It's almost like God took, imagine everything was infinite and his light is infinite, and he created within that like a black hole, like an empty space where you don't see his infinity. So, and in that empty space, then he put in one ray that creates the first universe of Atzilus, and then that gets like a black hole, and next universe of Bria, that one gets a black Yitzira, Asiya. So the distance to God is infinitely infinite. But be that as it may, each world has the intelligence of the world, it has the emotions of the world, and then it has Malchus. You've heard of Malchus. Now, the intelligence of the world is made up of Chachma, Bina, and Das, right? And that is the Torah in a way. The Torah is a blueprint of the world. And it's also called the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. What was in the Holy of Holies? The Ten Commandments. That's the essence of the Torah. Now, Chachma Bina Das of the world goes down into the Malchus of the world. It kind of, if you want to say it, it like impregnates the Malchus. And the Malchus becomes the mother of that world. She gives birth to that world. So the world itself comes from Malchus. The world of Atzilus comes from Malchus. And so Malchus is kind of this, if you want to call it like this womb that has a capacity to take from, if you want to call it the seed of above, and give birth to a universe, right? So it has this capacity. And then in fact, it becomes the like crown of the next universe. So the end of the world of Atzilus becomes like the crown of the world of Bria, and then the process starts again. It's almost like you have a child, you have a daughter, the daughter is able to receive, and she's able to make the next world, something like that. So very, very crude, but that's the example. In fact, male and female represent these levels. We're just kind of, our minds and our souls are representations, and we're playing this out kind of in this world. But in any event, that's not the main point of this talk. The main point of this talk is that the Shekhinah is, now this is a very interesting concept. And the concept is that basically there was a non-Jew, an anti-Semite that came to Rabbi Akiva, and he says, okay, you guys believe in one God. But you say wherever you have a minyan, and we'll go even further, wherever a Jew does a mitzvah, you study Torah, God is present. Now, how many gods do you have? So he gave him an example of a palace that has many rooms, and you have one sun, but a lot of light in different rooms. But practically speaking, what does that mean? If God is everywhere, how is he in one place more or less than another place? It's a fair question, right? If God is everywhere.
God is everywhere. He's everywhere. So it doesn't matter if he's in this place or that place or this place.
So if I have a minyan and then I say the Shekhinah came,
Okay.
how do I say that God came here if he was already here? That's the question. We say, Kol be'asara shchinta shaya. Wherever you have 10 Jews, the Shekhinah, the presence of God is going to kind of rest there.
Okay. So maybe it's just like a validation, or it's just a important for God to have those 10 Jews. So it's like you're acknowledging God. So God's giving a special blessing to the 10 that are there because
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
you're doing
yeah,
it for Hashem to
yeah.
have 10.
Right.
So you're getting a special
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Hashem.
Yes, this is true. This is true. Actually, I just read a letter. Actually, my wife read a letter. We read a letter together yesterday. Very interesting. Where I think it was some kind of family issue or whatever it was. It was just so interesting to see what the Rebbe said. He gave some advice and he said, and in everything you need a blessing from Hashem. So he said, recommendation or whatever, give a coin, extra coin to stock every day. So it was very interesting to me to see this because why? One of the things that, who am I? I'm nothing, but one of the things that I like about the Rebbe is that the Rebbe wasn't just, so a lot of rabbis, you'll go to them and they'll give you a nice big blessing, free of charge, a blessing. But first of all, give me some advice as well. And second of all, it's very practically, is the blessing going to work or not? You know what I mean? So the Rebbe was also a combination of not only, it was like, it was truth. Truth is not only just a blessing, of course, the Rebbe will give, but also there's certain things that you can do in certain ways that the spiritual system works. So one of the things that this idea of wherever you have the Shekhinah, it's like Hashem's presence is there. Certain things work. It's like, oh, you do a mitzvah, you brought the presence of Hashem. That's why if you do something extra, you bring an extra blessing. Because sometimes we all have blessings. It says in Kabbalah, by the way, I heard this from a Jew, a survivor of the Holocaust. So he lost a lot. And he told me that it says, very, very holy Jew, says that it says in Kabbalah that if you took all of your curses and compared them to one of your blessings, your one blessings would outweigh all of your curses. Now think about the blessings that we have. Okay, we all have curses and blessings, but one of your blessings could outweigh all of your curses. We're alive. That's pretty cool. A lot of people. My grandfather had a friend who he owned whatever this bank, and he sold his bank for $3 billion. My grandfather was excited. Grandfather was wealthy, he understood money a little bit. He says, I have a friend, and he sold his company for $3 billion cash, right? Not stocks, out cash. And he said, then he got very serious, and he said, and he'd give it all away to get better. He had Parkinson's. So you see, Baruch Hashem, there are a million diseases I don't have. Okay, so Baruch Hashem for what? Anyway, it's a separate issue. But basically, there's a very powerful teaching, by the way. What I'm saying right now is very, very, very powerful. Because if you have this mindset, it's very powerful. The mindset is, okay, usually you need to do something practical, but also you need a bracha from Hashem. So instead of thinking, oh, I just need a Hashem, please bless me, I'm going to do something extra. And that will bring the bracha. And that's really kind of more the way it works, because that is really the keli. The Rebbe, I think the Rebbe says a blessing is like rain, but the little bit extra you do is like the seed. And the rain comes to the seed. And so it's a very important teaching that we have to spread. Because, and I've mentioned this teaching, it was this guy actually that I was mentioned before, he once asked the Rebbe, so this is like I heard this from him who got it straight from the Rebbe. He once said to the Rebbe, he wanted a way to be happy in life. Not that he was depressed, but according to Chassidus, you're meant to be happy. The Rebbe, in fact, they say by nature was a pretty serious person. I knew somebody that knew the Rebbe as a child from Yekaterinoslavl. So the Rebbe wasn't a shtiffer. The Rebbe wasn't he wasn't a kid that went around and had fun. He was like, but the Rebbe induced in himself joy, because you're meant to be a happy person. So he asked the Rebbe how to be happy. So the Rebbe said, Hashem is the essence of goodness, and he just wants to do good. That's all he wants, is to do good. And with every good thing that we do, this is a mechanism that enables Hashem to do good to us. So let's look at life instead of, wow, Hashem, I need this. I need this, I'm going to do something extra. Yeah? And that, I think, is a much more powerful. They have studies, unfortunately, the education system is a disaster. I don't know what you feel.
Disaster.
Disaster.
Beyond disaster.
Beyond.
It's nothing like I ever thought would be possible.
Yeah,
It is just a mess. And
yeah,
the kids know it's a mess, and
really.
nobody seems to try to fix it. It's a mess.
A mess. Okay, so teacher for how many years?
47.
47 years, right. So now, why was I saying that? Um, um, okay, maybe I'll come back to me while I was
You
saying it.
said the Rebbe said that the education system, or you said the education system is a mess.
Yeah, there was something I was going to say about the education system, about educating, but it slipped my mind. Okay, if it comes back to me, I'll say it, yeah. But, yeah, um, yeah, no, it's unbelievable. What's going on is it,
What I'm seeing
yeah,
is that the students aren't being held accountable for their actions.
right, wow,
They're
wow,
getting away with a lot of things that back in my time,
yeah,
even when I taught, even before I taught,
yeah,
you need to be held accountable. And
right,
it's like they're afraid that the parents are going to do something
yeah,
to this the principal or this teacher or whatever. So it's like you can bring a knife to school and show up the next day.
right, right, yeah,
There's no consequences.
right,
And so what do you do when there's no consequences?
right, yeah. It's a very,
Serious.
it's a really, it's abuse of children, basically what's going on. And, children need and want boundaries. They want to know what's right and what's wrong. And the left has just, they've penetrated the education system, the Democratic Party. It's basically the Teachers Association, and they've completely brought in this kind of nihilism. Like you just do whatever you want. And ultimately, people feel good from doing good, and doing good takes discipline. It's just that simple. We were speaking about this on Shabbos. Somebody once asked me, "Okay, I have a friend; they're not happy." There's no trick to happiness. Happiness. I mean, obviously, sometimes circumstances are bad, but let's say if circumstances are good, it doesn't make people feel good. You have to do good. You have to do something that you're proud of. That's what it boils down to. And that's why it's the exact opposite of what liberalism is teaching that is going to help people. It is marriage, it is children, it is hard work, it is whatever, certainly Torah, mitzvahs, even if it's difficult, whatever. That's what makes people happy. It's just that simple. In any event, I forgot the main point that I wanted.
Shekhinah?
Yeah, so let's get back to the Shekhinah. That point I do remember. So the point is that the Shekhinah, the presence of Hashem is the Shekhinah. So the Shekhinah is okay. So this is very important. What I'm going to say now. I heard this actually from Rabbi Simon Jacobson. You've heard of Rabbi Simon Jacobson. He's from the big brains of Chabad, a Jew with a photographic memory. He wrote down many of the Rebbe's sichos, and the Rebbe had direct correspondence because he was writing the sichos. And a humble person, a very great person, and very into Chassidus. And he said that there's a whole kind of debate. Okay, so like what's going on? If everything is Hashem and we don't see Hashem, so does something else exist? What's happening? So it's a big subject. Again, thousands of books on the subject. But in a certain sense, what's going on is this is why we call the Shekhinah in a way, in the presence of Hashem, light. Hello, you want to join us? You got to go? Hold on, we got to give you a hug. Okay, so just to conclude, the idea is revelation. So what is the Shekhinah? What does it mean the Shekhinah? Hashem is everywhere. But certain places he's revealed, and other places he's concealed. So this place is no less God than the highest heavens, and even Hashem himself, which the highest heavens, in fact, the highest heavens don't have any more access to God, the revelation of Hashem, than this place right here. Because Hashem himself is Leis machshavet tfisabe. There's no thought that can understand him. The highest heaven. So it says, in fact, that the angel Michal, with all of his understanding of God, he'd give it all up for one corner of the tzitzis, right? So we all have this tzitzis, one little mitzvah. You'd give it all up just for that mitzvah. Why? Because even though it says that you can't grasp Hashem through your mind, in fact, And Michal ben Hashevis, see that I was talking to you before, he has a very special son, Yossi ben Hashevis. And Yossi is a big genius. And he said, it says that you can't grasp Hashem in your mind, but you can grasp him in your heart. You can feel Hashem. That's why it says that when you pray, you could reach the state of Ilu Yadaiti Vayisif. If I knew God, I would be God. Yesterday I saw this tremendous statement of the Rebbe. Wow, so beautiful. There are two levels of bittul. We know Chabad is all into bittul, right? You know what bittul is? Bittul is like humility, self-nullification. It's a complicated word, but we're all into bittul, right? Because kind of we all have an ego, and ego can be edging God out. But he says there are two kinds of humility. There's the humility where you step away to allow the other. So you're in Shemona Esrei, you're very humble, you're like servant before the king. So what is happening when the servant is before the king? Or today, we don't know what that means. Let's say you're standing before the Rebbe, what's happening is that he's so great and you respect him so much that you recede your own identity. In fact, the Baal Shem Tov has an interesting teaching. He says, you want to know if you have Yiras Hashem? He says, now imagine there was a minister. The minister loves, I don't know, cupcakes. It's his favorite thing. President Reagan liked jelly beans, whatever. But in front of the king, he's not even, if they brought cupcakes, it would mean nothing to him. Why? Because his own ego is so receded, it's so much not him about the king now. So therefore, he doesn't even feel his own desires. Anyway, that's Yiras Hashem. But something else is this idea, there's another kind of humility, which is you become the king. In other words, this is more like the son who like so identifies with his father that he'll go and he'll stand up and he's like or like like I don't know, a governor of a region, but it's not about him, or a soldier in the army. He's like, this is who this. He's taken on the identity of the king. It's not that he's receded himself for the king; he is the king.
And that's also called humility.
That's the highest humility.
Because you're identifying with the king.
You've become the king.
You become the king, and you're on that level.
Yeah, or the king has merged with you. And that's the whole idea of Yiddishkeit. In fact, we've said this before, that all the last 4 years of the Rebbe Sichos all speak about this concept, which is that, you come to Hashem. The whole world was made for the Baal Tshuva. So we come to Hashem, we're looking for the truth, we find Hashem. But then, with lightning, somebody told me this, I guess it's true. You're a teacher, so you probably know this better. So they say with lightning, what happens is, I don't know, maybe you know about this, but there's like some kind of electrical vacuum that happens from below and above, and the two things meet smack in the middle, and that creates the voltage, the light, whatever. So the point is, that's what happens. You come to Hashem, but that also brings Hashem to you, and then that creates a new reality. And the new reality is you have like a God human, or the way I like to say it, I mentioned in this book, you have your consciousness, and then there's the divine consciousness. But eventually, like the Rebbe, you have like some kind of joint consciousness going on.
Could you call it God consciousness?
I don't think God consciousness is you and you're conscious of God. Here it's that your mind and Hashem's mind kind of become like one. You become so used to, you become aware. Like I think somebody once said that he wanted to know how to like think like the Rebbe. The Rebbe said to learn Gemara. Like if you learned enough Torah, you would think like the Torah. You become accustomed to a new way of thinking, a new reality. And that's really the ultimate direction. So this is in a way the Shekhinah, this is the presence of Hashem, right? So people are davening, what's happening? They're connecting to Hashem. So it's not, Hashem is everywhere, but now he's in a state of connection with us. You're doing a mitzvah, he's connecting. Now we only see part of the connection. The connection is very, very great, very, very deep. Now just to conclude with what the Tanya of today says, the Tanya of today speaks about that when the first Beis HaMikdash was here and we had the Aron, by the way, I heard that they discovered, we all know that Solomon built secret passages and they discovered the Aron. Today you could have x-rays, you can see below the mountain the whole, and the rabbi of the Kaisel asked the Rebbe what to do. He said, leave it there. So the Aron is there under the...
There's a story that they were digging,
Yeah.
and until they reached a certain point, and then they asked the rebel what to do, and he said stop. I think
Oh,
this is the
really?
story.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason why
Because
stop
it's not when Mashiach comes, he'll
it has
bring
to
him.
stay there.
Yeah, it has to stay there till Mashiach.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in other words, I mean, that's, you don't mess with the Arain. But the Arain is there, and the Arain had the Luchais. And the Luchais were, and this is very interesting what the Alter Rebbe says, I never chapped it. It's very difficult, these last three chapters, very interesting. I only kind of picked it up this time. So the Luchais are Maisei Elikim, a whole story. But this world works according to nature. So if you see someone or something in this world, you see a natural. But the Luchais are supernatural. Because we know we had the Mem and the Samach that they were like a miracle. You could read it both sides. It was part of the higher universe. It wasn't part of our universe. And so therefore it was the direct Kodesh HaKadoshim of Atzilus in the Malchus of Atzilus. So it was the Shechina of the Malchus of Atzilus, the Malchus of Bria, straight into our world. But after that happened, the second base of Migdash, it was the Shechina as it went through the different universes. So now when we have the Shechina, we don't have the Shechina direct of Malchus of Atzilus. We have the Shechina as it goes through all the worlds into Malchus of Asiya, and then it comes into our world, and that's where we get our divine connection. Any questions, comments, statements, reviews?
Is there a reason why that happened, that process?
I don't know. Maybe we're going more into the exile state, so it's more concealment of Hashem.
Okay. But it is what it is, and so to connect to that, it's important to understand that
Yeah,
how it's working.
yeah, yeah.